not focused on making $10 at a time through our books. We are focused on bringing new clients into our business and making 10,000, 25,000, 100,000 at a time. And so we want to make sure that book gets into the hands of more people who are the right fit people to read it, even if we're giving that book away.
Hey friends, and welcome to the Next Best Thing podcast. I'm your host, Andrea Cline-Thomas. Now I'm here to help you live the life that you design instead of choosing a life you think you have to settle for. So check this out. Have you ever had something trifling happen? Okay, it doesn't have to be trifling. I just kind of go to trifling naturally. It could be amazing, like something amazing could happen, whatever. But you say, I'm gonna put that in the book. Or like, ooh, that's gonna make a really great chapter in the book. So my friends and I say that all the time. And then without fail, we start coming up with trifling like chapter names, like chapter titles or book titles. And then we just like kiki and laugh over it, right? But it's always about this book in the distant future, like far, far away, when we blow up and we can look back at our trials and tribulations and just throw our head back and laugh hysterically about it, right? So maybe it's just me. I don't know. So if you've been following along, then you know that in January when things were slow for me, one of the things I did with my time is that I invested in my personal development because I was like, there's a lot that I don't know. And let me go ahead and get this education. So I'm part of a community called Luminary. It centers women at work. And they have a lot of sessions, a lot of educational sessions that I take. And this one I specifically signed up for with the Entrepreneurs Network was about publishing a book. So I just signed up because I was like, this is an area that I don't know anything about. And I just want to learn like what it takes. Just thinking of like, maybe there's small things I can do now that could help me in the process in years, if all this stuff becomes successful, like maybe years and years down the road, I could start planting those seeds now because your girl is always playing the long game, right? But after I heard Danielle Mendoza speak, that timeline got moved up. I might write a book or start the process at the end of the year. Of course, I'm going to keep you posted. But like, she just blew my entire mind. Let me tell you about her. Danielle Mendoza is the founder of Confident Concept Book Development Agency. She's a bestseller herself, and she helps everyday people just like you and I self-publish books. And she says that every day that you let your thought leadership, that you let your expertise go unheard, or in this case, unpublished, you are leaving money on the table. Ouch. What we don't like to do here is leave money on the table. Why? Because money allows you to chuck the deuces and quit things that don't align with you. Money also conversely allows you to fund your dreams. And this is an avenue, she says, is available to everyone. What I really love about Danielle is that she is extraordinarily strategic. Her success in the book publishing world isn't just because she aligns with people who write great books. The content matters, but it's also because she has the marketing strategy to help enhance the content. And she'll talk about how important that is. Oftentimes people are just like, let me just write this book. And she says writing the book is just the beginning of the process. Now, Danielle so graciously agreed to be a guest on this podcast to break down the different types of publishing, who they best serve, and how you and your story, yes, your story, can fit into a category. Now, I had 3 big takeaways here. 1, you don't have to have a big time publisher to make writing a book worth the time and effort. Big time publishers work for very specific types of people. I am not in that category of person just yet. The second thing is that some of the books by big publishers don't actually sell a ton of copies. So some of these people with these the books are beautiful. They got the big names behind them. Some of them aren't actually selling at all. I didn't know that. Why? Because the gram is not telling me that, right? There are the book parties, everything's beautiful, but that does not mean that they're selling. So that's the second thing. And last takeaway is that a book is, in fact, a long game. And what makes it beneficial is not just selling the book, especially for somebody of my caliber. What makes it beneficial is the way I can leverage a book to solidify my thought leadership to create other far more lucrative opportunities. That's the bucket I'm in. So I'm going to be putting Danielle's contact information in the show notes. Be sure to give her a shout, at least sign up for her newsletter. I'm on her newsletter list. I couldn't sign up fast enough when I first heard her. She has already blown my mind in this conversation again. She also gives away a free copy of her first book, Timeless Visibility. You get a free downloadable, free digital copy of her book. Again, all of that is going to be in the show notes. So be sure to check that out. And I hope this conversation unlocks the possibility for you. And if it does, let me know so we can plug your book when it comes out. All right, let's get into the conversation with Danielle. All right, Danielle, I'm so happy to have you here. And I just know you're about to unlock so much for those who are listening and watching. Describe what it is that you do first before we get started.
All right. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I hope this unlocks so much juicy goodness for people. I'm Danielle Mendoza. I'm the founder of the Confident Concept Book Consulting Agency. And what that means is I work with entrepreneurs and business owners every day who want to write a book that they can leverage to not only expand their impact, but elevate their business growth and get to that next level of success.
And what can a book open up for somebody?
It can open up a whole new world, okay? So a book is a really powerful tool to position in your business. It opens you up not only to enhanced visibility opportunities, because now you're approaching, let's say, a podcast like yours and saying, hey, I'm a best-selling author. This is the book that I wrote. This is the conversation I want to have with your audience. You become a no-brainer yes as that guest. It also opens up the opportunity for reduced ad spend. So when you position your book at the top of a business funnel, you're now reducing your cost per qualified lead by sometimes as much as 80 or 90%. Like, it is massive, the returns that can come from that angle. And you're opening yourself up to a treasure trove of social content. You no longer have to spend all this time on the social media hamster wheel trying to figure out what to say. Is this the right thing? Does it speak to my proper avatar? Instead, it's all right there in your book. And if you really want to, you can hand that book off to a team member with a plan for sharing that content. And you don't even have to be involved in the actual content creation part of it. So there are some massive time freedom and revenue returns that can come from placing a book in your business.
Talk about that ad spend part of it. Like, break that down for me.
So what's happening when you put a book at the top of your funnel, and lots of like 8-figure, 9-figure business owners are doing this and seeing these results, you're doing a better job of filtering people at the very top of that funnel. So in your book, they're having a chance to really get to know you as well as what you have to offer them, right? Because in that book, you're offering them actual actionable items that they can use to get some results and say, hey, this works for me or this doesn't work for me. So before they move on to the next steps in that funnel, they're self-selecting in or out, which means the people who reach the bottom of that funnel are geared up and ready to jump into whatever services you offer. So it's one of those things that increases the quality of those people coming through. And you're able to save, one business owner was seeing about $75 to $80 cost per qualified lead through ads, just regular ads directing people to what she does. Instead, she positioned a book at the top of that funnel and she sees $8 cost per qualified lead. So it is a massive difference.
That's amazing. But I kind of came into this before taking a session with you thinking that, all right, I have to be a big deal. Like I have to be like a celebrity or celebrity adjacent or social media celebrity, whatever, influencer in that way. And then I would have to go to one of the big publishers. And that was, and then I'd seen people, self publish, but I thought that was like, that doesn't really get them very much traction. That's just something that like a passion project of theirs. So it's like, it's fun and nice and, it's a great accomplishment. But going to your session, I was like, I am so wrong. Explain why I'm so wrong. That idea was so wrong.
So big publishers have a place, right? Like there is a time to partner with a big publisher. And I always encourage people when they're considering that, think of it as a brand partnership. Is it time for your brand to partner with their brand and kind of work together to create this thing and bring it out to the market? But what people often think is that working with a big publisher means that they're going to do a lot of the marketing for you. They're going to put you out into these markets and you'll instantly be seen by, hundreds, thousands, millions of people that have never seen you before. And that is just not the case. Publishers are in business just like the rest of us, and their goal is to make their money off of your book sales, and they expect you to leverage your audience and to leverage your visibility opportunities to be able to sell more of that book and make them their money, right? That's how that process works. And there's nothing wrong with that inherently, but when you understand that at its core and you understand how much you're going to be pouring into this for maybe a 20% royalty return, you can understand that self-publishing is a lot more powerful when you're looking at leveraging for business growth, because you're no longer worried about how big is my audience. Instead, you're using that book to grow your audience. So it comes from a completely different angle of understanding, and you maintain complete control over that book. So you maintain complete creative control. You have the opportunity to repurpose whatever you want inside of that book. Now, that can be true with a big publisher, but you have to check your contracts, because it has happened where people have put all this work, their heart and soul, into a book with a big publisher, turned around, tried to use it to repurpose that content for social media, and they weren't allowed. So it is something you want to understand, okay, what's my end goal here? What's the purpose of this book for me and for my brand? And does it make sense to go the self-publishing route where I maintain complete control? I have the opportunity to focus on quality, make sure it's representing my brand as a top quality brand out in the market space, and leverage it on my own for my own returns. And it's funny, we often think of like Brene Brown, right? We're like, man, she's so big and she wrote this book and everybody loved it. And it's because she was with a publisher and she did a TEDx talk. And the truth is, I think that was like her 5th or 6th book. She had been publishing well before that. And a lot of us don't really piece together that pathway. We don't understand that you may have the opportunity to go on and become a very big name and publish with a big publisher, but it doesn't have to be your first book, and it probably won't be. So you can get into the self-publishing game, hone your skills as a writer, get familiar with what it looks like to write a book, to go through the editing process, to play with different designs, to understand what it is you want out of this and walk it out in, a really guided way. You can find people like myself to help you with that. So you're not all on your own. You're not completely lost in the weeds, but you don't have to go through, the rigmarole of proving that you have all these followers and proving that you have access to a giant market that a publisher would find attractive.
Such great information. I just want to pause the conversation really quickly right there and ask you, have you signed up for the Next Nuggets newsletter, where we break down key points from this conversation and it's delivered directly to your email inbox every single Wednesday? Also, have you subscribed? Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Bonus points if you turn on the notifications. What it does is that it ensures that you never miss another conversation, and it helps get this content in front of more people. Help me help the algorithm out, y'all. I really appreciate all of your support. All right, back to the conversation. I think that was a really, really helpful breakdown to understand that book publishing is like available to far more people. And you said something that I really loved, that you're not setting out to be a genius author. We're authoring to share our genius. And again, it was like the different approach. Explain that.
So oftentimes, entrepreneurs or business people get excited about the idea of writing a book, and then they think, I can't, I'd love to do that, but I can't do that. I'm not a writer. I can't write well. I'm not this author person. And my favorite response to that is, good, you don't need to be, because if you were a writer by your zone of genius, like if your zone of genius was authoring books, then you would already be out there writing books, right? Like you'd be out there with the likes of the big authors and working that magic. But the truth of the matter is, you have a magic that you work, you have a zone of genius, and authoring is about sharing that genius with more people, making it more accessible, expanding the impact that your genius could have in the lives of others, ongoing beyond your own lifetime, even, because that's the legacy of books. And so when you get brave enough to put all of that genius into the little package that is a book, you can understand how all of a sudden it's not about being that author, it's about being who I already am and just going through the process of learning to put that on paper. And the beautiful thing is, I always say, it's not a school essay. Like, you don't have to get it right out of the gate. You're not looking for 100% A plus. You're looking to get those thoughts out of your head onto the page, and let people like myself and editors work with you to refine that product so that it makes sense to the reader. Those themes are presented accordingly. The information is clear, and it's a co-collaborative process that creates something amazing that can actually serve people.
So break down kind of what are the publishing like processes that are available to people. So we know, like, you go with a big publisher. You kind of outlined it before, but let's break it down to the three kind of categories.
Yeah. So we have your traditional publisher, right? Those are the big publishers. You're asking them if they would be willing to take on your book idea. And if you go with one of them, it's about a 2.5-year process. So you're going to be developing out your idea, going through the editing and design process with them, and then walking out a launch that is very PR heavy, right? Because that's how you get the word out about your book. Be ready to go on tour, to do like a podcasting tour as well as in-person book events. And that's what that traditional publishing route looks like. In hybrid publishing, and this is where people get confused. They say like, oh, I've got a publisher, and they do, but it is a hybrid publisher. And so you have to understand, hybrid publishers are paid up front. So your traditional publishers never paid up front. They're paid through the sales of the book. So that's how they pay their editors, their designers, everyone involved. The hybrid publishers are paid up front for their services. And those people are essentially self-publishing on your behalf, right? A lot like a traditional publisher is. They are setting up, going through their own imprint, setting up that book listing, getting it set up for print on demand or Kindle or audiobook or whatever that looks like. And they're helping you walk through that process as well. And just like a big publisher, they have to pay their editors, they have to pay their designers, they have to pay their teams, and they will rely on you for marketing as well. Now, some of them include a marketing package, but you really have to be careful, because I've heard some horror stories where things just aren't delivered, stuff doesn't happen, there's a lot of promises made and then broken. So you have to understand, when you're working with a hybrid publisher, you are essentially walking out what is the self-publishing process. So you want to make sure that they have a focus on quality, because oftentimes what I see in the hybrid publishing world is they will be like, no, it's fine. It's only $5,000 to publish your book with us. And you think, great, that sounds awesome. Like, this other person I talked to said 30 or 50 or 100. So 5,000, I can do that. Let's go. And what you don't understand is they're sacrificing quality along the way to make that work and make a profit. So you have to be really careful. You want to vet your person. I would venture to say if it's anything less than 15,000, you're probably not getting quality services. And so you really need to investigate deeper, what is it that they're providing in that contract? And again, check your contracts, because I've seen people lose the rights to their own work with hybrid publishers as well. I've also seen some interesting things where they're allowed to create any spin-offs, series books, TV, otherwise, from your book, and you sign over those
Oh,
rights in that
wow.
contract. So definitely take the time to review it. If you're not sure what you're reading, reach out to a lawyer, have them review it as well, because you want to make sure you're entering into a partnership that makes sense. Then the last way, and my favorite way to publish books, is self-publishing. And that really is where you are functioning as your own publisher. And that can be scary because it's hard to know all the steps to walk out to create a quality product, who to go to, which editors to use, which designer is not going to screw you over and charge you a ton of money on the back end. And so that's where my agency was born, to fill that gap of self-publishing. We help people learn how to not only write their book, but to self-publish it and maintain that quality along the way. And we also focus on that PR strategy, book events, podcast tours, all of that good stuff that a big publisher would help you focus on. We do the same because I have a background in business strategy and marketing, and I know that is the most important piece of a book. That's how you can write a book with a very small audience and leverage that book to get to your next level of success, is through what that book can do for you in terms of bringing in new clients. So we have a heavy focus there, something a lot of hybrid publishers don't do at all. They look at publishing as the finish line, and we look at publishing as the very beginning of the journey.
Oh, that's so cool. Tell me how it's what it's done for you. Because you're saying that you wrote your book and you had a very small social media following. What has happened since that point?
So when I wrote my first book, I had just started my business development consultancy. It's geared toward women who are starting up brand new businesses. I still have that consultancy today. And it was kind of scary. Like, I said yes to this thing and I was like, this is insane. I had less than 200 followers across platforms. I was like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? But I saw this conversation happening in the online business world, saying like, manifest this, manifest that. And I saw how misguided a lot of the advice was. And as a practitioner of manifestation for over a decade, I was like, you know what? Somebody needs to spill the real deal on this. Like, what does it really mean to manifest your success? So I wrote a book, Manifest Success. And I started leveraging that book right away. And this is something I teach my clients how to do. How do we leverage this book and start to monetize the idea before it's even written? And I was able to bring three new clients into my business before publishing day. I also was like kind of psychotic, and I started writing the book in June. I published it in September. I don't recommend that to anyone.
My God.
It was an insane journey, and I threw all of my focus into that. But it did serve me because now people were seeing that I did understand business. I did understand this idea of manifestation. I knew how to put them together. So it created a really warm, open conversation with people interested in this to consider working with me, because now they could learn about my stories, my personality, see how I approach business, and see if it aligns with their values. And it became a natural next step to jump into business with me. And that book has grown my list year over year, still grows my list. And it's also brought me a lot of amazing clients and led me to my book consulting agency, because people saw the success of that book and said, hey, I know you don't do this, but I'm writing this thing. Can you help me? And after the fourth person said, I know you don't do this, I decided, okay, this can be a thing that I do. There's obviously a need in the market for entrepreneurs specifically. And I shifted into book strategy, opened my second business, and I've been publishing a book every year ever since.
Amazing. And I know you say that everybody has a book in them. How do you know if you really have a book in you? Like, what does that even mean?
So if you are an expert, if you're running a business and you're doing well and you have clients and you have a process that you use and you've been alive for more than like a decade, you have stories to share. So everyone really does have a book in them. Usually the confusion comes around wondering, is my story good enough? Does anyone even care? Is this something people would want to read? Or thinking, well, I haven't gone like rags to riches, so I don't have this big, amazing, shining golden moment to stand on. We don't need any of that. And I always point to Hallmark. Look, everybody loves a good Hallmark story, okay? They're feel good, they're fuzzy. We know the main character's biggest problem is like getting the hot chocolate shop open in time for Christmas. And we're all bought into it. We're so excited for them. We want to know what's going to happen next, right? So your story doesn't need to be full of dramatic flair, but chances are, and this is almost always the case, I've actually never seen it not be the case, your stories have led you to what you're doing. Your stories have taught you something. So those experiences you had led you to a new insight, a new understanding, something that you want to share with your audience. And those stories become a powerful vehicle for sharing those exact things. And in telling them the right way, you're able to show that person that you understand. You get where they're at and you get how to help them get to where they want to go. And it's because you've been there, right? You've gone through it and you've seen other clients go through it. And you're able to share that so they become part of your story. Instead of you just telling your story and talking about yourself, you're bringing them into the experience and showing them what's really possible.
And I love also that you were talking about, it doesn't have to be like a 300 page, page turner, this big old book.
For sure, for sure. So quick reads are doing really well right now. And it all depends on your audience. Who is in your audience? How much time do they have to sit with your book? Like, we want to be cognizant of that. I just this past year published a quick read that was 49 pages. It has continued to grow my list. It has continued to bring people into my business. And it's been extremely valuable. It's earned me podcast opportunities like this, media features, and given people just what they need to know about publishing a book, about leveraging it for visibility, about being really strategic in 2024 when the market has gotten kind of crazy. So it's something that can serve your people in, if what you have to say fits well in 25 pages, do 25 pages. There's no need to fluff it up. If it takes 150, do 150 pages. We're not looking for something that is this like heavy tome of a book that someone has to set aside hours to read. Chances are good people won't even get through it if that's the case. So we want to make it a low lift, an easy thing for people. And it's enough to get them connected to you. And then you can take the conversation from there. You don't have to give them everything in the book.
And, also I was really interested in doing some research about the idea of legacy too. I know that's important to you. And why books are important to you is because of leaving a legacy behind. If you could share just some of your personal story about when that came to fruition for you, when that was like very clear about how you really wanted to kind of impact your legacy in a different way.
So when I was 4 months pregnant with my second child, I found out that I had basal cell skin cancer. And it's not a super serious type of skin cancer. It's not anything where you're being given, 6 weeks or 6 months to live. But it shook me, kind of rattled me and made me wake up to, what am I really doing here? What's going on? And even though it's easy to cure, so to speak, it took 4 years and I ended up losing a third of my top lip. And it was in that experience, going through all of that I had this thought of like, I could die, this could have been a serious cancer and I could die. And then I kind of laughed at myself and I'm like, I could always die. Like, that's just true of life. Every single one of us is on kind of a ticking clock and we don't know where that ends. And I realized that I wasn't being intentional enough about leaving the story of me behind, right? Legacy is all about, what are the stories people are going to tell about you? How did you make them feel? What did you help them with? And being a stay-at-home mom wasn't serving my legacy. So I decided to get back into business and start helping people. And I really felt called to helping other people leave their legacy as well. It became a heavy calling on my heart and I just had to answer it. So I see books as the ultimate tool for that. One day when we're gone, the website's going to be gone. This podcast may not be functioning unless you set up a trust to take care of it. Your social media is going to kind of shut down and come to a halt, and the algorithm's not going to put anything out anymore because you're just not active there. And your email list will be gone, but your book can live on. It can live on the shelves of libraries. It'll be passed around amongst friends. it will continue to nurture and serve people and share your wisdom with the world long after you're gone. I mean, we still read books that are hundreds and even thousands of years old. That's the power of leaving those words behind.
And I don't know if it was Atomic Habits or what, but saying that like when it first, some books when they first come out, they don't get traction, but it's like the year 2 and 3 and 4. It's just it's a slow burn, and it's an exponential kind of like build up where more and more people. So it's like one person tells 2 people, and then those 2 people tell 10 people, stuff like that.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at Mike Michalowicz, right, we all know him,
Mhm.
Profit First. He wrote that book and he did a year-long book tour through a well-known networking group before he was ever known, right? So he was just his self going around group to group talking about this book, giving talks, doing little book events. And over time, enough people learned about it in these kind of centers of influence through this networking group that they started to share it with other people. And like you said, they shared it. And before you know it, we all know Mike Michalowicz's name. We all understand the Profit First idea. And you can go find endless YouTube videos that people have created on how to apply Profit First to different industries. So it became a really powerful movement, but that movement took time. And that is the power of a book, is that you are not limited to the first month or 6 months after you publish it. Your book has a shelf life of literally decades, right? So it's something that you can continue to leverage over and over. And you might leverage it right away to activate some of your warm audience, bring in a few clients, but you're also leveraging it for greater visibility. So now more people are learning about who you are, what you do, the things that you believe in, and they think, hey, I really would like to read her book, and they go pick it up and they're reading it, and then they're telling someone about it, right? So as your own audience grows through the book, then your book gets into more hands as well. So it's this cyclical thing that's happening as you continue to talk about that book and share it and stand behind it. But you'll never feel good doing that if you don't focus on quality. If you're embarrassed by your book, if you feel like, oh, I didn't write it, a ghostwriter wrote it, or AI wrote it, or I don't really like the cover, or the inside paper is kind of flimsy and see-through. If you have those thoughts running through your mind, you're never going to stand firm and be proud of your book and continue to share it. So you do want to make sure that you focus on putting together a quality product that you believe in.
And now I'm a numbers girl. So I was also really interested in how many books does like an average author sell? Like what, because you never really know what the numbers are unless it's like 100,000, something astronomical.
Yeah, we all heard about how Glennon Doyle sold 1 million books in like 19 weeks, right? Like that was just part of like media headlines. But your average self-published author sells less than 250 copies of their book, actually. Mm-hmm. And so that's something that we focus on in the agency. How can we boost your book sales, especially at launch time? Because we want you to rank as a bestseller. That's really important. If you're going to pour yourself into this book, the time, the money, the heart and soul, you deserve to have that book go bestseller at its launch. And so we're focused on that. We've had books go bestseller with anywhere from 200 to 750 copies. So they're outselling that yearly average right from the beginning. And then from there, it's not so much about how do I sell more books, right? Because we're not focused on making $10 at a time through our books. We are focused on bringing new clients into our business and making 10,000, 25,000, 100,000 at a time. And so we want to make sure that book gets into the hands of more people who are the right fit people to read it, even if we're giving that book away, right? So I give away the digital copies of my books all the time. It's a great way to grow my list. And it's a great way to make sure that people who are the right fit people have zero barrier to entry, right? It's an easy in. Who doesn't love a free book? I mean, let's be real. You're at least going to check it out. If you don't read the whole thing, you're at least going to like take a look at it, read kind of what it's about, and maybe dive into a chapter or two. And so it is a powerful way to get yourself exposed to more people. And you don't even have to focus on those book sales quite the same way that you do at launch. But they naturally go together. They naturally go hand in hand. The more you're talking about it, the more people want it. And I give away digital versions of my book, and I can't tell you how many times people have come to me and said, okay, but is there a paperback? Like, I don't do the ebook thing. And I'm like, well, sure, but that's $15.99. My ebook is free. And they're like, I don't care. And they buy it anyway. So it's one of those things that it naturally happens. You're going to sell more books along the years as you continue to talk about it. But you can give it away and make more money than if you ever focused on selling it alone.
And just to be clear, giving it away for free makes money because of the opportunities that come from getting that book in more people's hands.
Exactly. So every one of our authors embeds some kind of follow-up into their book. So there's a workbook, or there's additional video resources, or a training, something to take that reader who's really interested in taking action and getting these results in their life deeper into the process. And so from there, now they're interacting with you even more, right? Through this video training, through the workbook activities. And then you have a nurture process that goes on in the background, just like we do in all of our funnels, right? Any successful funnel starts with that free entry thing and then walks that person through the breadcrumbs of a nurture process, finally resulting in making the offer and inviting them to get the ultimate transformation by working with you. So yes, it's exactly the same with your book. And that's why it can make you more money than if you were to focus on the sale of the book as the bottom of that funnel.
Got it. No, that's so smart. But is it just the traditional, having the traditional folks like the Harper Collins and the Simon and Schusters of the world? Is that how people are making money, just purely from the book? Or is it like, because writing books does make some people some money, just the act of writing books?
It does make some people some money through book sales, but typically those are the celebrity figureheads. Those are the people that have a massive following, right? You have to have a very large following and a lot of eyes on you and on your world if you're going to sell 1 million books in 19 weeks, right? You have already garnered a level of attention that makes that possible. You don't go from unknown to that well-known in such a short period of time. Just like when Brene Brown came out with her book, her TED Talk actually happened, I believe it was a few months before her book. And then that TED Talk was posted to YouTube just a couple of months after her book was published. And it takes a good year to walk through the whole TEDx talk model, right? Like you have to plan the talk, you have to get selected to speak and share it, and you have to practice it and memorize it and then go deliver it. And then it takes months for them to get those videos together and put it on their YouTube channel. So that was all planned out. Like she planned that out intentionally. She and her publisher planned the fact that she would have this TED Talk, her book would be released, and then the TED Talk would go on YouTube, and all of that happening in succession over those months allowed her to continue to have eyeballs on that idea and on her, and allowed her to kind of go viral and blow up and become really well known, right? So it's never done without intention. Don't be mistaken. Yeah. It's never like you go bestseller because you published a book and cross your fingers. You're like, I hope people like it. Oh, look, enough did. No, it's always done with intention. Every New York Times bestseller, WSJ, USA, Journal, like all the bestseller lists is always done with intention, even Amazon. And so that's why having someone in your back pocket who knows that system, who can help you plan that launch out and execute it accordingly is the best way to get yourself that kind of recognition. But again, Brene Brown didn't start from scratch. That was like her 5th book. She was well known in the academic circles. She already had people behind her who were ready to go watch that TED Talk on YouTube and, get it the views that it got and share it, just like any other launch.
That's amazing. And also it just tells people, or at least told me, that everybody who has a book isn't selling thousands and thousands of copies. Everybody who has a book by a traditional publisher, they are not all selling thousands.
Correct. Of copies. Publishers lose money too. I mean, just like any other business, every author they bring in is risk, right? Which is part of why they hedge that risk by saying, hey, do you have a big following? There's nothing wrong with the process that they use. It makes sense, and they've honed it, over the years. The difference is now with technology and with everything that we have at our fingertips, we have the opportunity to bypass that process, and we don't have to wait until someone else says, okay, you're big enough, let's go. We can just start sharing ourselves in those books and start connecting with more and more people.
That's a perfect segue to our last segment called Act Up, where those are my initials. I ask our guests, what can people do to get them from where they are to where they want to be? So they're hearing this, they're like, all right, I'm ready to write my book. What's the first thing they should do? Should they start writing, or should they start assembling a team to help them in the process?
So I always say go for the who, not the how, right? Like, that's great business advice, always and forever will be. And unless you want to kind of dive down that Google rabbit hole and sift through all the terrible contradictory advice out there, you really need to get someone on your side who understands from your perspective what this book is going to do, right? There's a lot of information out there that's great book advice if you want to write like a fiction romance novel. But it's not going to apply if you're looking to write a nonfiction hybrid memoir that's going to advance your business. So you have to make sure you have someone who understands what does it mean to have a book that drives business success. And then from there, look at it through that lens. And so where I always start with my potential clients is we hop on a free 15-minute idea assessment call. We take a look at their idea. What is your big idea? What's been put on your heart? I believe all of that is a divine calling. So let's take a look at that and figure out how to connect it to your business so that it makes sense for you and becomes a true investment process and not an expense that's just draining your cash flow. And we look at, okay, we've connected those ideas. Perfect. We decide, is it right for us to work together? It's not always. And if it's not, I have other people in the industry that I can, refer them to who might be a better fit. But if it is, the next step is to develop that outline. We're going to take a look at their idea. We're going to find that golden thread that's going to weave through all of the stories, the theme of their book. And we're going to lay it out from beginning to end. We're going to know exactly what goes into every chapter. We're going to know which story is going to go where, how we're going to position that story. And I give them the building blocks of a chapter. I have a 4-part building block process so that each chapter feels a little different, but make sure it has all the components it needs to be engaging and to nurture them to that next step. And then from there, they can start writing. So it really is about determining who is my best person as the reader. I'm not talking to everyone, just like anything else in business. If you talk to everyone, you talk to no one. So who's my best reader? How does my idea connect to my business? And then what is that full and complete outline look like? We don't want to end up word wandering where we're just sitting at our computer hoping something will come together and feeling defeated. So we want to make this a really confident process.
Oh, Danielle, so good. So good. If somebody is ready to work with you right now, how can they keep in contact with you? Or you have a newsletter as well. I get the newsletter. It's great information. How can they just kind of stay in touch?
So you can email me, hello@confidentconcept.com, both singular. Or you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm all over LinkedIn. I'm there every day. I'm in my DMs. So just shoot me a message and we'll chat.
Thank you so much for this. As I said earlier, it completely changed my mind. I'm definitely going to do this. It's just a matter of when. And I'm going to give you a call too. I'm definitely giving you a call. I feel like I just need to get some things, off my plate. And
for sure.
Dive into
that.
Absolutely.
And, just to speak to that, there is the all in book writing sprint where we're going to put our mind to it, get it done, kind of ignore some other things for a while, take a little book sabbatical, if you will. Or there's a really paced process where you can write for 15 minutes a day, right? 2 hours on the weekend, whatever that looks like for you that fits into your schedule, and you can still get your book done. So it's not always as far off as you think.
Okay. Noted. Absolutely noted. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It was my pleasure.
Thanks for listening to The Next Best Thing with Andrea Cline-Thomas, a Mountain Court Media production. The music was written, recorded, and produced by Gavin Casey, also known as Dark Purple. Now, if you like what you heard, please subscribe, give us a 5-star rating, and write a comment on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to share it with friends. And I hope this episode helps you on your journey. See you next time.